Something has shifted in Charlotte, and it's not just the heat of August. For the first week of training camp, the Carolina Panthers offense looked like a unit still stuck in neutral. The routes were mistimed, the throws were hesitant, and Bryce Young, their prized second-year quarterback, seemed trapped in the fog of indecision. But then Monday arrived, pads went on, and everything changed. The moment the full contact session began, the tone of camp transformed. The practice field buzzed with energy, intensity, and urgency. For the first time this summer, the Panthers didn't resemble a team trying to survive. They looked like one finding its rhythm. Bryce Young's mechanics snapped into sync. The receivers ran with conviction. The play calling gained tempo. It wasn't about one spectacular throw or an isolated highlight. It was a coordinated elevation of effort across the board. The Panthers weren't going through the motions anymore. They were building something. What caught everyone off guard wasn't simply the improved execution. It was the unity, the cohesion, the sudden sense that this group, once sluggish and misaligned, had found its voice. Young wasn't just throwing the ball more cleanly, he was commanding the huddle with confidence. The team felt sharper, quicker, more connected. And that kind of momentum in training camp doesn't just happen. It means something's clicking behind the scenes. The heart of the transformation, of course, starts with Young. Monday's session saw him take a decisive step forward. He stopped hesitating in the pocket, instead trusting his reads and letting it rip. During a red zone rep, he dropped a beautifully timed fade into the arms of rookie receiver T-Mac, who had just fought off a tough press from Mike Jackson. The pass wasn't accidental. It was crisp, calculated, and perfectly placed. This wasn't the Bryce Young of last week. This was a quarterback starting to look like a franchise leader. Even more telling was his composure. Young didn't overreach or scramble at the first sign of pressure. He let the game come to him. He scanned his options, kept his base solid, and delivered the ball with poise. When things broke down around him, he didn't panic, he adjusted, and the coaching staff took notice. This wasn't about a hot streak, it was a string of smart, reliable decisions. Bryce was trusting the system. More importantly, he was trusting his receivers. But here's the twist. The catalyst behind Young's sudden surge wasn't a flashy rookie or a high-priced free agent. It was a veteran wide receiver whose career almost ended before this camp even began. While attention turned toward Carolina's young talent, one seasoned presence has quietly emerged as Young's go-to target, and his comeback story may just redefine this team's offensive identity. Heading into camp, the Carolina receiving corps was considered thin. Many doubted whether it had the talent to keep up in a competitive NFC South, but that narrative is starting to crack. T-Mac is showing flashes of the first-round pick he was projected to be. Ex-Leggett is stacking reps with physical route running and toughness. And then there's Jalen Coker, the undrafted rookie out of Holy Cross who refuses to be overlooked, making his presence felt in full team sessions. These players aren't just chasing roster spots, they're earning trust. They're making noise. Amid all that rising talent, the veterans haven't faded, they've responded. Adam Thielen continues to be the technician he's always been. David Moore is quietly climbing in the coach's favor. And then there's the biggest surprise of camp. A veteran wideout once seen as a depth filler who's suddenly become a difference maker. He's drawing flags, catching everything in sight, and forcing defensive backs to respect him. If this room was supposed to lack punch, someone forgot to tell these guys. Still, none of it matches the emotional weight of one particular comeback. A few years ago, Hunter Renfrow was one of the most reliable slot receivers in the league, but behind the Pro Bowl stats, his body was betraying him. Chronic fatigue, unexplained setbacks, and constant exhaustion forced him to question if he had anything left. By the end of 2023, Renfrow wasn't just thinking about retiring, he told his agent he was done. But fate had other plans. A visit to Atrium Health in Charlotte, a rigorous health turnaround, and the quiet support of a new environment reignited his fire. Back home, with former Clemson coach Dabo Swinney watching from the sidelines, Renfrow isn't just practicing, he's thriving. 3 straight wins in one-on-ones, a diving catch from Andy Dalton in team drills. He's not clinging to a roster spot, he's dominating camp. And as his resurgence unfolds, one thing is becoming clear. Hunter Renfrow's return might not just reshape the Panthers' receiver room, it could become the emotional heartbeat of the entire offense. Renfrow's resurgence wasn't just symbolic, it was contagious. His grit and precision began setting the tone, and the ripple effect reached every corner of the roster. Suddenly, the young receivers weren't just flashing talent, they were feeding off the energy of a veteran who just months ago nearly walked away from the game. But while the offense was capturing the headlines, the defense was issuing its own warning. Monday's full contact session didn't just light a fire under the offense, it ignited raw physicality on the other side of the ball. And it took just one hit to turn up the temperature. Linebacker Trevin Wallace read a swing route, timed his break, and delivered a shot to running back Chuba Hubbard that turned heads and tempers. Some argued it was a clean shoulder blow. Others claimed it was helmet to chest. Either way, the result was immediate. Chuba came up swinging, a scuffle broke out, and teammates rushed in to pull them apart. The message was clear. The defense wasn't backing down, and camp was no longer a controlled walkthrough. It was a fight for identity. That moment became a statement, not just about toughness, but about intent. The Panthers' defense had been waiting for its opportunity to speak, and it shows violence in the best way possible. Trevin Wallace's hit was just the beginning. Second-year edge rusher DJ Johnson continued to make his presence felt with authority, disrupting run plays. He's not just flashing athleticism, he's positioning himself for meaningful snaps with the first unit. Christian Rosenboom added fuel to the fire with a blitz that would have ended in a sack in live play. And with veteran leaders like Shaq Thompson sidelined, it's these young defenders who are beginning to reshape the tone of Carolina's front seven. They're not names that dominate headlines yet, but they're making themselves known, one rep at a time. Still, the defensive momentum wasn't without its cost. As the offensive line began to stabilize, a sudden blow struck the trenches. Third-year guard Chandler Zavala, who had been turning heads with his development, suffered a knee injury during one-on-one drills against Derek Brown. The diagnosis? A patella tendon issue. Week to week, but internally there's concern. Zavala wasn't just any lineman. He was ascending, finding his footing as a reliable presence. And now, the depth chart is being restructured in real time. In his absence, the Panthers are leaning on Ja'Tyre Carter and Jarrett Kingston, two players still fighting for second-team reps. Brady Christensen, the group's most versatile lineman, may now be stretched even further as a stabilizing force. Coaches have begun rotating Yoshai Nijman and Taylor Moton to maintain chemistry, but Zavala's absence threatens to disrupt the cohesion they were carefully building ahead of joint practices. This isn't just about plugging a hole, it's about preventing a leak from becoming a flood. Depth on the offensive line isn't a luxury. It's the difference between keeping Bryce Young upright and risking another season of regression. And while the starting five remains mostly intact, one more injury could send the unit into crisis mode. Meanwhile, in the secondary, the next chapter of this evolving camp narrative was quietly unfolding. With starters J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson sitting out for rest, two lesser-known corners stepped into the spotlight and may have just rewritten their own futures. Undrafted rookie Corey Thornton and second-year defender Shamar Bartholomew were thrust into first-team reps, and they didn't flinch. Thornton, despite lacking any NFL experience, showed sharp instincts and composure in man coverage. Bartholomew, who spent much of last year under the radar, revealed more polished physical edge during full squad drills. Their performances were more than encouraging. They were disruptive. Head coach Dave Canales took note. He praised the young corner's growth, hinting that Carolina might not need to dip into the free agent market for veteran reinforcements after all. If these two continue to progress, they could be critical in stabilizing what was once viewed as a thin unit behind Horn and Jackson. And the battles didn't stop there. On special teams, the competition is becoming one of the most intense and overlooked storylines of camp. With roster spots tight in every phase of the game under a microscope, the kicker battle has turned into a chess match. Harrison Mevis and Eddie Pinheiro are locked in a duel that could come down to preseason performance under pressure. One wrong kick, and it's over. The return game is also under evaluation. Jimmy Horn Jr., a speedster with explosive potential, is battling for relevance, not just on offense, but as a returner who can flip field position in a heartbeat. His every rep matters. And for veterans like Renfrow, whose versatility includes experience in the return game, special teams could end up being the tiebreaker that keeps him on the final 53 roster. In the NFL, roster decisions don't just come down to stats, they come down to impact. And right now, every inch of practice tape is under scrutiny. So, here's the state of play. The Carolina Panthers walked into camp with questions at quarterback, at receiver, across the trenches, even on special teams. But now, they're answering them loudly. Bryce Young is growing into the leader they drafted him to be. The receiver room is deeper than advertised. The defense is scrappy, fast, and physical. And unexpected names like Renfrow, Coker, Wallace, and Bartholomew are reshaping the depth chart with every rep. This team isn't polished yet, but it's no longer passive. The Panthers are starting to look dangerous. And if this trajectory holds, the rest of the NFC South better start paying attention.